and welcome everybody to our second session of Women on Wednesday. There we go. So Women on Wednesday is a project of Lift Louisiana. We are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to educate, advocate, and litigate for the policy changes that are needed to improve the health and well-being of Louisiana's women, their families, and their communities. We're really excited about today's session, which is all about ending the pink tax. And we're going to be focusing mostly specifically on House Bill 7, which would be a sales and use tax exemption on feminine hygiene products and diapers. And we have some movement on that bill and some news that we will talk about. But before I introduce our featured guest speaker for today, Representative Amy Freeman, I just want to kind of give folks a little bit of a background on kind of where we've been on this issue over the past several years. We have been working at Lift Louisiana along with other advocates and lawmakers for several years to eliminate the pink tax, both at the state and the local level. And our work really began in 2017 with Senator Morell's recurring efforts to get rid of this tax in the state legislature. In 2017, he introduced two bills. One was a proposed constitutional amendment. And in that year, both bills were passed out of their committees, but were never brought to the floor for a vote because Senator Morell never thought that he had enough votes to actually pass them. So 2 years later in 2019, he came back with the same two bills. The proposed constitutional amendment passed out of the committee, but it failed to receive the 2/3 vote in the Senate that is required to pass a constitutional amendment. But it did get 21 yeses and 12 noes. So it did have majority support in the Senate that year. The other bill, which was not a constitutional amendment and it didn't require a 2/3 vote, it just required a majority, was passed in the Senate by a vote of 29 yeses and 5 noes. And then it passed in the House with no opposition, 98 yeses and 0 noes. However, because there were amendments to the bill during the process that were adopted in the House, the bill had to go to a conference committee to resolve those issues and the changes that had been made to the bill. The conference committee, unfortunately, failed to pass the bill by just one vote. And what happened was that the session ended that year before the bill could be fully passed. And this was a really big disappointment for all of us, and especially for Senator Morell, because it was his last year in the legislature and he had tried so hard to get this done during his time as a state senator. But what we learned from that effort is that there were enough votes to get this done. And so that mantle has been picked up by our guest speaker today. And I'm really excited to have her join us. State Representative Amy Freeman. I just want to tell you a little bit about her if you don't know her, if you're not in the New Orleans area, and you may not be familiar with her because she was just elected in 2019. She came out of a very, very, very contested race. There were 7 candidates that were running, and she prevailed. And she was kind of immediately gung-ho on the issue of eliminating the pink tax. So she started out last year in the 2020 regular session with a bill that ended up passing and becoming Act number 138. And so that bill was to allow local municipalities to eliminate the local sales tax on these products. And since then, she's worked with local city councils and advocacy organizations like Lift Louisiana to pass ordinances for this tax exemption in New Orleans and East Baton Rouge and in Shreveport. So in addition to serving as representative for District 98 in the legislature, Amy's a wife and a mother, a grandmother, an active civic leader, a Tulane adjunct professor, and a strategic business consultant. So she's what I would consider a Renaissance woman. And I'm very excited to have her join us today and talk to us about her efforts and what we can do on this issue, this legislative session and in the future. So I'm going to hand it over, and I'm going to pause my screen sharing, and that way you will be able to share your screen.
Hey, Michelle. Thank you for having me. I'm actually sitting on the House floor and no one is in the building. Pretty well. There's pages, handing out paper, and the clerk is up there doing some work. So it's can y'all hear me? I don't have headphones on or anything, but I can put them on.
We can hear you fine.
Okay. It's usually very noisy here, so I normally couldn't do a call on the House floor. And Allison had some slides that we created for another discussion about the statewide pink tax exemption before session. Obviously, we've had some movement or some stalling of movement on the bill, but I just didn't know, where would you like me to start? I know you were in committee with me earlier this week, so.
Yeah, I think that if you want to just tell us a little bit about, why this issue was important to you and why you decided to take it up, and then, a little bit about what your experience was last legislative session on the local bill,
Okay.
and then catch us up on where we are right now and what our next steps are, if any.
Okay. So last year, during the COVID session, of course, we had 3 sessions last year, is when I passed Act 138. So this little timeline that Allison helped me create has the timeline. And Senator Morrell is a friend of mine. And after I was elected, we had a discussion about how I could continue to keep this issue alive during a non-fiscal session, because of course I couldn't do a statewide exemption, but I could do an option for a local tax exemption. And so in order to have that done, I was able to work with my fellow colleagues and get that passed. It does have a sunset on it at the end of this year. It's one of those moments when I feel that COVID actually helped me, because I was able to. They all realized how people were really, really struggling because it was a pandemic. So we were able to get it through. I had 38 co-authors. The governor signed it. It was kind of wonderful to have that be my first bill, but it was also a little sad because I had no one there to actually take a photograph with me with the governor. It was me and the governor. So it got done, and thankfully, New Orleans City Council passed a repeal of the pink tax for their portion of the local tax. Still would like to see the school board and the is it one of the industrial boards also takes a percentage of that. So I've asked all the school board members to bring something forward. We need to get them to do that. Baton Rouge City Council also repealed it, and then Shreveport did it. So that was 3 municipalities who took advantage of the local option. And so for this year, I filed the full statewide tax exemption for feminine products and diapers. And I would like to extend the local option. So I'm working on making sure the local option continues. And we heard the bill, or it was heard on Monday. Was that today's a Wednesday, right? Michelle, you were up here Monday, correct?
It was Monday.
Okay. I'm like, it doesn't, time gets really strange in this building, I've found. So on Monday, we presented the bill in Ways and Means, and we were asked to voluntarily defer it by the chairman. At that particular day, he talked to me previous to me sitting down at the table. So we had an agreement that I would just come back another day this week. Well, I did come back yesterday afternoon, and thought I had the votes to get out of committee. One of my fellow Democrats was late to the meeting, and they called for a vote, and the chairman had to run to the restroom. And so these things actually happen, like where someone's not in a chair and then all of a sudden you have to back up. And so it was a tie vote, which means it's still very much alive, and it's on the schedule for Monday for me to get it out of committee. So I do believe I will be able to get out of committee. It does matter who's sitting in their chair. One of my colleagues from Shreveport. She's a Democrat. She was late to the meeting. And if she had been sitting in her chair, I would have been okay. But there is a vote taken at a certain time, and that's what happened. So right now, I'm in a lot of talks with the speaker and also the speaker pro tem and the chairman of Ways and Means, because there are lots of concerns about fiscal notes. There always are, but because of the federal dollars that are coming towards us, we don't know all the rules, but we've been told one of the rules is you can't use federal dollars to plug tax exemptions or tax reductions. So right now I am working to find the $11 million somewhere else in the budget. And I'm even asking if they'll let me put it in the revenue estimating conference money, because we think there's going to be a higher amount come in when REC meets. But so it's still very much in play. So all of you who are interested in seeing it pass and be a statewide exemption, Allison's got on the screen up here, my legislative assistant is on this call, and we have a list of all the different supporters. And I think, did we add, I feel like we also have Louisiana Right to Life in there. I'm not, and a couple other organizations, and she's got all the partners organizations. We have so many partner organizations on this. It's been pretty much a bipartisan conversation. I very much thank Senator Morrell for starting this conversation, and I'm trying to help him out, to help the women of the state. But I'm trying to carry his issue forward, because really, when I look at this is not for me; it's for the women and the children of our state. So that's just a little overview. I'm sure people have questions. It might be easier. We have some of the statistics on here too, if you want me to share those, Michelle.
Okay, yeah, I think if probably people are somewhat familiar with it, but if people have specific questions on the statistics, I'll let them ask them in the chat. I
Okay.
guess I'm glad that you explained that because it was a tie, it could come back up again.
Yeah, it was not involuntarily deferred. It was just paused. So it's on the agenda. I just signed a piece of paper about an hour ago to put it on the agenda for Monday. So it's on the agenda for Monday.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. I was going to show.
I don't know that we're going to convince those who voted against it to vote for it.
Right.
And I know some others who are against. Some of them are against it out of the concept of they don't like exemptions at all.
Right.
And one of those people wasn't there yesterday, Bo Bouye, and he's going to be there on Monday. So I'm like, okay. So one of the things I'm going to really have to do, and I know Michelle, hopefully you'll come back up here, or I know Allison probably will, is I have to look and see who's in the chairs before I sit down at the table, because Tammy not sitting in her chair, I didn't notice that she wasn't in her chair, and that, like I said, it was one vote short of getting out of committee.
Okay.
So.
Well, I reached out to the committee staff and they sent me the vote counts. I put that up on the screen for folks, and we can share that out for folks.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody has connections to any of my colleagues who voted nay. Most of them, if I look at them, voted nay because of they don't like carve-outs that exist. So anyhow, I mean, if people have connections to any of those people through other means, it's always a good thing to reach out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Robin Barber who's going to facilitate our Q&A, because we do have some questions that people have put in the chat. So folks can put the questions in the chat, or if you want to ask your question, you can use the raise hand. I think that you might have a raise hand feature, or and we'll get your question asked and hopefully answered. I'm going to stop my screen sharing now.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. One of the first questions, Representative Freeman, is Jocelyn wants to know can she know the name of the representative that was late, that probably was going to cast the yay vote?
Oh, that's my friend Tammy Phelps in Shreveport. She'll be back. She felt pretty bad about it. But sometimes you're getting from one place to another in the building. And like today I was trying to co-present a bill with Mandy Landry about protections for gun rights and making sure that we have the right background checks even for online purchases. And so I was running downstairs to be in criminal justice with her so we could co-present with Moms Demand Action and Everytown. And then I needed to be upstairs because Stephanie Hilferty has a great bill about ending corporal punishment in schools because 40 of our school districts in the state still have corporal punishment, which is horrific to me. But I had to, I'm like running because Stephanie needed me to vote with her to get her bill out of committee, right? So I mean, I don't blame Tammy. Stuff happens. You're trying to get from one place to the other, and I kind of blame myself a little bit by not noticing that she wasn't sitting in the chair. But we will make sure the right people are in the right chairs on Monday. I'm gonna watch that closely. But Tammy's very supportive. She's part of the Democratic
Okay.
Caucus. So it's not that she's not supportive. She literally was on her way to the meeting.
Okay, Talia wants to know what is the main reason that people are voting against this? And I think you already answered that, but
Yeah, I mean,
you can just go through it again if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because the issue with how federal money is used in relation to tax exemption, as you mentioned, or because people don't see an issue with the pink tax to begin with.
So I think the majority of them are very fiscally conservative and don't like any tax exemptions. Like they would like to rewrite the entire code and say nobody can have a tax exemption for medicine or kidney dialysis machine or Mardi Gras beads, or although Mardi Gras beads are on a pause until 2025, the way it's written right now. So I think they would like to have no tax exemptions. And so it's more of a principled policy thing for them than it is that they're against the pink tax. Now, I mean, me on the other hand, I'm like, I don't see why we can't do this, but it seems like we could do tax exemptions for a lot bigger corporations, et cetera. So it seems like if my fiscal note is $11 million, it should be something we can cover,
Thank you.
Working on that. I'm working on trying to figure out where that money is going to come from.
Thank you.
So I can,
Maddie Freeman.
Yeah.
Maddie Fireman wants to know, are the nay votes all male?
I'd have to go back and look, but there's only
Yeah,
probably,
they were.
and there are only 3 women on that committee anyway. Melinda White, Rhonda Butler, Tammy Phelps. I think there are only 3 women on the committee. I mean, remember, there's only 21 of us in the whole body. Now only 21 now because we have a new representative-elect that just got elected in District 82. So there will be 21 when Laurie Schlegel is sworn in. So we get spread thinly because there's not a lot of us.
Michelle,
But I appreciate the
But I wanted
strategic
to-
thinking
yeah.
because it does take a lot of us together to get this done. I feel relatively good about making sure it comes out of committee Monday, but I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch, as they say. I'm not a farmer, but I think that's what they say.
So I posted both the spreadsheet that Allison shared with us that has all the members on the Ways and Means Committee and their contact information, and then also the link to this cool tool that we have where you can go to this website and click make the call. You put in your information and it'll call your phone, and then it'll have whatever screen you're looking at, the computer, your tablet, or whatever, or your phone. The talking points will come up on the web page, but it will call your phone and then it'll connect you automatically with your legislator's office. So if you live in one of these districts, then I think that's really important. If you don't, then you might want to hold off and use that tool when we're going, when we get it out of committee and we're going to the floor with it. And then we'll need to generate some more phone calls to members outside of the committee. Yeah, do we have any other questions? Well, I guess, you know, now we know what we need to do. Do you think it would be helpful for folks to thank the committee members that voted this week and, you know, urge them to make sure that they're there on Monday to continue to support the bill?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always nice for people to get thank yous. Yeah.
Okay, I think that.
I mean, I personally appreciate a thank you because sometimes I forget what I'm doing and I'm just moving from one thing to the next, you know. So when someone says like, "Oh, thank you for doing whatever," you know, I think it's a good thing. Are there any other questions about other stuff that's going on the floor while I have people on the call?
What happened with the education bill on corporal punishment? It got out? Okay.
We got it out of committee. Yeah, I think we had 7 for and 4 against or something, but I think it was like 7-4. But I think that's going to have trouble on the floor, from what I understand from Representative Hilferty. I think she brought it 2 years ago and had lots of trouble. So it's really horrible, though.
Yeah, I think is the family forum against that bill. Do you know?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I do see a lot of our National Council of Jewish Women members on, so we were really happy to have them as the co-sponsor, and there's a lot of their members in your district. So, well, I guess, you know, we don't want to keep you any longer than we have to. I know how busy you are. I will plan to try to be there on Monday. I might be a little bit late because I have to drop my daughter off at school before I can scoot on up there, but I will do my best to be there as early as I can.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I do believe that it's not like I have to represent the bill each time, but it's going to be all about me reading the room and seeing who's sitting in the room before the vote happens for that one. So, but I'd absolutely appreciate everything each one of you is doing, because I do need to know that the people are working behind the scenes and on the scenes and around the scenes, because there's a lot of scenes happening in here, and I didn't even catch all the national news about the 5-hour education meeting from yesterday, but I was actually physically there, so I didn't.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. I saw something on the news. This is Robin again, and I don't know the representative's name, but this bill about teaching about slavery, can you expand on that?
All I can say is that I personally went to the speaker and the speaker pro tem last week and said, I don't understand why this bill is even scheduled for a hearing, because it is so horrible. And they said he's the chairman of the committee. So it was the chairman's bill, which is why it was scheduled for committee. It did not go anywhere. He voluntarily deferred it at the beginning of the meeting, but it's looming. The fact that it's looming at all and that we couldn't kill it. We tried to kill it, but it was a tie vote. So it's sitting.
Did you understand what the bill was about? Because I sat through the whole thing and I don't think he explained it.
He didn't explain it. He brought the Heritage Foundation, and they explained how things like this happened in other states, but they could never give me an example of how anything happened in this state. And it was supposedly so that people can't get every side of an issue, but it made no sense to many of us. And we had a lot of opposition. We were in there for 5 hours. There was a motion to limit testimony when we got to the opposition, and a bunch of us voted no on that because it wouldn't be fair to give the Heritage Foundation a 2-hour platform and not allow all the opposition to come up. No one was for the bill. So it was a pretty horrible 5 hours for many of us to sit through. And I don't know if it'll come back or not, but my radar is up because it wasn't completely killed.
for folks who aren't following this, the bill, the essence of the bill, I think, Melissa, to try to answer that question is to ban the, anti-racism teaching and training, or critical race theory, or any kind of curriculum that basically honestly teaches about systemic and institutional racism or slavery. And it was interesting because the proponents and the bill's author kept saying that it was about not indoctrinating, students with, and it was about, presenting both sides, but the bill was very specifically about prohibiting the teaching of certain kinds of information and theory. So I don't, so it just, the cognitive dissonance was a little much.
Well, that's why I asked the question, Michelle, because nowhere in the bill does it use the words critical race theory, yet they spent the entire time talking about critical race theory and Marxism. And, it was just beyond the pale. And then the chairman contradicted himself several times. Like, I don't want to, we can teach true history. We can teach true history. It was just really disorienting, and I think sends a terrible signal about the level of discourse in that committee.
Well, and worse than that, it's very frustrating because we have so many problems with education. We're 49th or 50th, and what we should have been spending 5 hours on is figuring out how we can fund more programs for bringing up the literacy rates, how we can make sure that we restructure schools so that we have fewer DNF schools, how we make sure that bus drivers, today we had a bill on the bus drivers, this doesn't happen in Orleans Parish, but they're owner operated bus drivers who are paying out of their own pocket. They're making so little money, they haven't had a pay raise since 1986. So there's a lot of really important things that we need to solve. And we spent 5 hours talking about something that was a voluntarily deferred bill that people had a right to speak about and talk about, but we should really be trying to put the students first and solve the problems for the students. Like my bill, HB 409, just passed off the floor today, and that's the restructuring of Title IX with more reporting and accountability and termination for mandatory reporters at higher education. That came off the House floor today. So go to the Senate committees soon. That's the kind of things we should be talking about in education. So it was very frustrating for many of us that we spent 5 hours on it.
Well, we do appreciate that, and in the spirit of not taking up more of your time, and I do appreciate you engaging with us on, not just the topic that we called you here for, but
several others.
I do want to thank you so much for joining us and
Yes, thank you.
working so closely with us and moving this pink tax bill forward. I hope we can get it done. So we'll let you go, but before the rest of you go.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. We have our next Women on Wednesday on May, now I can't see the date because my little thing is covering it up, but on May 12th at 6. This one's going to be on addressing maternal health. And we will have folks from Birthmark Doula Collaborative, the National Birth Equity, Doula Collective, National Birth Equity Collaborative, and State Representative Matthew Willard to talk about the work that they are doing in this session to try to deal with the maternal mortality crisis in Louisiana. And before you guys hop off, so we hope you'll join us for that. And please take a minute to complete our poll.
It only let me do one question, Michelle.
Let me relaunch it and see what happens. Okay. But thank you.
Now it's working.
And okay, good. Thank you all so much, and thanks NCJW for co-sponsoring and being such a great partner, and for so many of you showing up. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.